A little orphan girl begged not to be adopted by a rich man after spending a day with him. What she said in court left the judge horrified. On that sunny morning, the orphanage was bustling with the excited awakening of the children, but among them Brittany stood out with the energy of her 7 years. As the soft morning light flooded the dormitory, spreading over her disheveled blonde hair, she eagerly searched for an essential item for her day. "Denise, have you seen my favorite blue ribbon? I can't remember where I left it. I'm looking, but I can't find it," she asked with a hint of desperation, rummaging through the blankets in search of the beloved accessory. The response came with a warm laugh from Denise, who, at 16 years old, had grown accustomed to being the guardian not only of Brittany's lost objects, but also of her dreams and fears. "Here it is, Brittany," said Denise, pulling the ribbon from a forgotten corner under the bed. "You need to start paying more attention to where you leave your things," she advised, handing the ribbon to Brittany with a smile, as the younger girl ran to hug her gratefully. In the dining hall, breakfast was a moment of communion and shared dreams. While sharing the last piece of bread, Brittany looked at Denise with eyes full of hope and imagination. "Denise, just imagine if we could have breakfast like this every day, but in a house that was truly ours," she said, her voice laden with a pure desire for a home. Denise, taking Brittany's hand, responded with a silent promise in her green eyes. "It would be our little paradise, Brittany, but know that for me, any place can be our home as long as we are together." This love that the two shared, strengthened by the simplicity they shared there at the orphanage, made their relationship close to that of sisters. As the day unfolded, every shared task became an adventure. "Denise, do you think anyone will want to adopt a girl like me?" Brittany asked as she helped fold clothes with her friend in the room, her small voice trembling with uncertainty. Denise stopped, her eyes meeting Brittany's in a moment of deep understanding. "Brittany, who wouldn't want you?" she replied with conviction, kneeling to be at Brittany's eye level. "You are the light of this place, and who knows, maybe someone will see that light and decide they want it to be part of their life too," she continued, wrapping Brittany in a tight hug, trying to protect her from the harsh realities of the outside world. The rest of the day was spent in the small green paradise that was the orphanage's garden. There, they could just be two children, away from worries and the walls that often served only to remind them of the feeling of abandonment. "Careful, Brittany," Denise shouted as the younger girl ran through the garden, a moment of happiness between the two. When night came, under the veil of darkness that enveloped the orphanage, Brittany and Denise remained awake, talking to each other, an island of warmth amid the cold silence of the other children. They spoke softly. "Denise, do you think there is someone out there for us? Someone who could be our family and would choose us?" Brittany broke the silence, her voice full of hope and a hint of fear. Denise sighed, pondering her words carefully before responding. "Brittany, the world is a big place, full of different people. Some are good, others not so much," she began, wanting to protect Brittany, but also prepare her for the realities they might face. "There are good people, yes, but you need to understand, Brittany, that not all stories like ours have the ending we wish for," Denise confessed, her voice choked with emotion. "Especially for someone like me," she added, the weight of being a teenager in a system that favored the adoption of younger children heavy in her words. "But why? You are the best person I know, Denise. Who wouldn't want you as a daughter?" "I can't understand," Brittany insisted, unable to grasp the complications that Denise's age represented in the adoption process. Denise smiled sadly, stroking Brittany's hair. "You see the world through eyes full of love, Brittany. But many people out there, they look for younger children whom they can raise from a young age," she explained, her heart aching to speak such truths. "But that doesn't matter because I have you, and that's more than I could ask for," Denise affirmed, trying to infuse some of her own courage and contentment into Brittany. Brittany, processing Denise's words, turned to face the darkness, her thoughts tumultuous with the injustice of it all. "Denise, promise me that no matter what happens, even if someone comes to adopt me, you won't let me go without you?" she asked, her voice small and firm in the quiet of the night. "I promise, Brittany. We are in this together, remember? Always together, no matter what happens," Denise assured, her promise sealing a pact between them. "I dream of having a family too. Remember what I told you? I was left here very young, just like you. My parents were not good to me, and that made me closed off to any family that wanted to adopt me. When I changed my mind, I was already too old. I don't want you to have the same thought as me." They spent the rest of the night talking about little things, dreams and hopes, some silly, others deeply rooted in their hearts. Conversations about places they would like to visit, foods they dreamed of tasting, and the adventures they would have if the world outside allowed. When sleep finally began to claim Brittany, her last words were a whisper to her sister in spirit. "One day, Denise, someone will come, someone with a good heart, and that person will be our new family." And with this confession of faith and love, they surrendered to sleep, resting after the immense fatigue the day had brought them. The sun had barely risen when Lorraine Perry, the director of the orphanage, entered the dormitory with a mixture of urgency and excitement in her voice. "Children, wake up. Today we have a very important visitor," she announced, her words cutting through the morning silence. The news spread like wildfire, and in an instant the dormitory was bustling, with children hurriedly getting ready, curiosity filling every look with the news from Mrs. Perry. Brittany and Denise exchanged knowing looks, the expectation evident on their faces. While they dressed, Brittany couldn't contain her curiosity. "Who do you think it is, Denise? What if it's someone wanting to adopt a child and a teenager like us?" she asked, her eyes shining with the possibility of a new beginning. Denise, with her wisdom forged by the extra years, looked at Brittany, her smile tinged with melancholy. "I don't know, Brittany, but remember, not all people who come here have the best intentions," she said softly, trying to prepare Brittany for the often harsh reality they faced. "Some people may seem good on the outside, but inside they are not fit to be a new family." Denise left the sentence hanging, her gaze distant. Descending the stairs in a sea of laughter and whispers, the children lined up in the main hall, each trying to look their best. The door opened and Philip entered, his imposing figure instantly silencing the room. Brittany couldn't help but feel a shiver as she observed him. There was something about his presence that intimidated and fascinated at the same time. "Children, this is Philip. He came to visit us today," Lorraine announced, her voice vibrating with a note of respect. Philip looked around, his gaze sweeping the room without really settling on anyone, maintaining an emotional distance that only increased the mystery around him. The children watched, some with hope, others with caution, as Philip moved among them, his words few and measured. "Good morning, everyone. I am here to see the orphanage and all of you, and perhaps do something more," he said, his voice deep and calm. After the brief introduction, Philip began a tour of the orphanage, closely followed by Lorraine, who showed him the facilities with pride. The children, instructed to stay in the hall, began to speculate about his true intentions. Brittany, driven by a mixture of fear and fascination, approached Denise. "Do you think he will want to adopt someone from here?" she whispered, the anxiety clear in her voice. Denise looked at Philip, observing him as he talked to Lorraine. "It's hard to say, Brittany, but as I told you, we need to be careful with people, especially those we don't know well, and this man seems not to want to be known for some reason," she replied, trying to keep Brittany aware of reality, even amid the excitement that a possible adoption could bring. As Philip continued his visit, the children watched from afar, trying to decipher the man who walked through the orphanage's corridors. The atmosphere was charged with expectation and uncertainty, and Philip spoke with Lorraine in another room. "Mrs. Perry, the place is really beautiful, and the children seem well-disciplined. I admire the work you do here, and I want to make this visit even more worthwhile in the end." Brittany held Denise's hand, seeking comfort in the only confidant of her life, while Denise wrapped an arm around her, offering the silent support that had always been her promise. In that moment, regardless of Philip's intentions, Brittany and Denise knew that as long as they were together, they would face whatever the world had in store for them. The afternoon unfolded slowly at the orphanage as Philip concluded his silent observation and returned to the hall. With an almost imperceptible gesture, he called Lorraine aside, exchanging a few words in a low tone. The children's eyes oscillated between curiosity and anxiety, each waiting for the outcome of that unexpected visit. Then, with a decision that seemed to carry the weight of the world, Philip discreetly pointed in Brittany's direction. "I would like to get to know this young girl better," he said, his voice serene but firm. The room plunged into tense silence, the gazes now fixed on Brittany, who felt her heart race with surprise and fear. Denise, noticing Brittany's shock and hesitation, approached, offering an encouraging smile. "Brittany, this might be a good opportunity. whispered Denise, trying to hide the pain the idea of separation caused her. "You need to meet this man, but be careful. Then we will think about what to do. Please try to be happy." Denise's voice quivered with emotion. Brittany looked at Denise, finding in her friend's eyes not only encouragement, but also the promise that somehow they would find a solution to stay together. Encouraged by Denise's words, Brittany began to feel a thread of excitement mixed with fear. The possibility of finally having a family was a dream she had barely allowed herself to imagine. However, Philip's imposing presence still cast a shadow of doubt over her feelings. When Philip called her to a more secluded corner of the garden, with Lorraine's approval, who watched from a safe distance, Brittany felt a knot form in her stomach. "Brittany, I don't want you to feel intimidated. I'm here because I am truly interested in you," Philip began, his voice attempting to convey calm. "I know this situation might be a bit scary, but I want you to know that my intention is to offer you the home you deserve, along with care and protection," he continued, looking directly into Brittany's eyes. Philip's words, though full of good intentions, seemed to cross an abyss of experiences and expectations, trying to reach the heart of the young girl before him. Brittany, still processing the avalanche of emotions that conversation aroused, found the courage to speak. "I would like to believe that all this is true," she said, her voice trembling. "But it's hard to imagine my life away from the orphanage. I've always wanted to have a family, but I can't imagine my life away from the people I love here at the orphanage. Away from Denise," she confessed, her last words barely audible but full of meaning. Philip listened attentively, his expression softening as he understood the depth of the bond between Brittany and Denise. "I understand the importance of this friendship for you. I don't want you to think of me as someone who will separate you," he responded, considering his next words. "Let's take one step at a time. Today I would just like to start getting to know you better, and who knows, in the future we might find a way to make everyone happy. I will talk to Lorraine, and I want to take you to see my house and a bit of my life." Lorraine, witnessing the exchange of words from a distance, felt a mix of hope and concern. She knew that the path ahead for Brittany, Denise, and Philip would be full of challenges but also possibilities. "Go, girl. This man can give you things that your biological family never would. You will be surprised when you get to know him better," Lorraine thought to herself silently. The next morning brought with it a mixture of emotions for Brittany, who found herself on the brink of a new life. While Lorraine helped the little girl get ready, Brittany couldn't avoid the flood of thoughts that filled her mind. The possibility of having a family filled her heart with a joy she hadn't felt in a long time, but the idea of separating from Denise was like a shadow threatening to darken this new dawn. When Philip arrived, his imposing presence seemed to fill the entire orphanage. Brittany watched him from afar, her heart beating fast in her chest. "Brittany, are you ready?" asked Philip, offering her an encouraging smile. Brittany nodded, taking a deep breath to gather courage. As she walked towards Philip, the girl tried to hide her nervousness, remembering to keep her head held high as Denise had taught her. Philip observed Brittany approach, a slight smile touching his lips. "Good morning, Brittany. Today you will spend the day with me, maybe the whole week. I will show you where I live and what my life is like," he said, extending his hand to the girl. Brittany looked at Lorraine, seeking one last look of approval before placing her hand in his. The contact with Philip still made her feel a bit withdrawn, but Denise's words echoed in her mind, encouraging her to take this step into the unknown. The trip to Philip's house was made in silence, Brittany looking out the car window, absorbing every detail of the streets they passed. When they finally arrived, the front gate opened to reveal a mansion that seemed taken from a fairy tale. Brittany's eyes widened as she saw the extent of the property, with well-kept gardens lining the path to the main entrance. "This is my house," said Philip, watching Brittany's reaction. "Come on, I'll show you the rest." As they entered the mansion, Brittany couldn't help but marvel at the grandeur of the place. Each room they visited was more impressive than the last, with elegant furniture and artworks decorating the walls. Philip explained a bit about each piece, trying to engage Brittany in the history of his home. Despite the beauty of the place, Brittany felt the absence of a warmth that would transform that mansion into a home. The grandeur of the space around her made her feel small and a little lost, the longing for Denise and the orphanage growing with each moment. "Do you like it here, Brittany?" asked Philip, noticing the thoughtful expression on the girl's face. Brittany looked at him, her blue eyes reflecting a mixture of admiration and uncertainty. "It's beautiful, Mr. Philip. I've never seen anything like it," she replied sincerely, "but it feels a bit lonely. Do you live here alone?" she added, unable to hide her true feelings. Philip observed her for a moment, pondering Brittany's words. "Yes, Brittany. The only other person usually in this house besides me is the housekeeper, but we don't interact much." "I understand what you mean," he finally said. "A house only becomes a home when it's shared with the people we love." Philip's words touched Brittany's heart, making her realize that perhaps this enigmatic man had more in common with her than she initially imagined. He looked at Brittany, his brown eyes meeting hers. "And more than that, Brittany, I want you to feel like part of something bigger, a family. I know change can be scary, but you won't be alone." Brittany felt a warmth fill her heart at these words. The idea of having a family, something that always seemed so distant, was beginning to take shape before her eyes. "I would like that," she managed to say, her voice trembling with a mix of nervousness and excitement. Philip smiled, a rare gesture that completely transformed his usually serious expression. "Then let's make this place a home for you," he said, extending his hand to Brittany, who hesitantly accepted it. Together they walked through the property, Philip showing her the various rooms of the house, each more impressive than the last. Brittany was amazed, but the feeling of emptiness from not having Denise by her side was noticeable. At the end of the house tour, they found themselves in the living room, a spacious area with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a stunning view of the gardens. "You will see, Brittany, in time everything will feel more familiar," Philip said, trying to comfort her. "If you accept living here with me, we can visit the city and explore all the beautiful places it has to offer," Brittany thought, a shy smile forming on her lips. "I would really like to see the city," she replied, feeling a spark of excitement for the first time since the adoption was mentioned. At that moment, although Philip's figure still imposed some apprehension, the kindness and understanding he demonstrated began to break down the barriers of fear. As night fell over the mansion, Brittany was shown to her new room, a cozy space Philip had prepared especially for her. Alone, she allowed herself to reflect on the day's events, the conversation with Philip, and the possibility of finally having found a home. Still, the image of Denise, smiling sadly as she encouraged her to embrace her new life, remained vivid in her mind. "Denise, I wish you could see this," Brittany murmured to herself, looking out the window at the stars. A solitary tear slid down her face, but now there was also a spark of hope. Maybe, somehow, this can become a real home. That first night in Philip's mansion, Brittany fell asleep not only with dreams and doubts about the future in her mind, thinking whether she should accept the adoption or not. The sunrise brought a new day at the mansion, bathing every corner with a soft light that promised new beginnings. Philip found Brittany in the large kitchen where she stood by the window, her gaze lost in the vast gardens that might become part of her new world. "Good morning, Brittany. I hope you slept well," said Philip, approaching her with a gentle smile. The girl turned to him, still somewhat hesitant in the presence of the man who promised to be her new family. "Good morning, Philip. Yes, I slept," Brittany replied, trying to find comfort in the formalities of the conversation. The enormity of the house still intimidated her, each room echoing with the magnitude of the change in her life. Philip noticed her hesitation and decided it was time to break the ice, to transform the expectation into experience. "Today is a new day, and I thought we could do something special. How about we go somewhere you like?" "You can choose," he proposed, hoping to encourage Brittany to open up more and start seeing life there as her new reality. Brittany looked at Philip, surprised and cautious about the freedom of choice. The idea of being able to decide where to go, of having a voice in the decision, was something new to her. "Really? I can choose any place?" she asked, hope shining in her eyes for the first time since she arrived. "Of course, Brittany. Today is all yours," Philip confirmed with a nod, encouraging her. Without hesitating further, Brittany smiled, a glimpse of excitement crossing her face. "Then I want to go to the ice cream parlor," she declared, remembering the hot summer days at the orphanage when ice cream was the peak of luxury and happiness. Philip smiled, pleased to see her excited. He agreed, and together they set off for the city center. At the ice cream parlor, Brittany marveled at the options, her eyes dancing among the flavors before finally deciding on strawberry. Philip chose chocolate, and they sat outside under the gentle morning sun. "Philip, do you like ice cream?" Brittany asked, genuinely curious about the preferences of the man in front of her. Philip laughed, the simplicity of the question bringing a lightness to the moment. "I love it, especially chocolate. I've always liked it ever since I was your age and very small. And you, I see you like strawberry. That was my mother's favorite flavor," he responded, pointing to her ice cream. Brittany nodded, a small laugh escaping her. "I'm glad to know that, Mr. Philip. I love strawberry. It's sweet and very tasty. It's also Denise's favorite flavor," she said. And for a moment the barrier between them seemed thinner, the bonds of the future family beginning to form. After the sweet moment at the ice cream parlor, Philip suggested a visit to the local bookstore, knowing Brittany's love for reading. The idea lit up her face with renewed enthusiasm. "You can choose any book you want," Philip said, as they entered the store filled with tall shelves and the inviting smell of paper. "Anyone," Brittany repeated, her eyes already scanning the shelves in search of a hidden treasure. "Anyone," Philip confirmed, watching her with a mix of contentment and reflection. While Brittany explored the bookstore, flipping through pages and absorbing titles, Philip reflected on the significance of that day. It was not just about giving Brittany a taste of freedom or simple pleasures, but about building memories together, making all the bureaucracy of the adoption process that might come just a detail in the midst of many good things that were to come. Meanwhile, at the orphanage, Denise found herself in Lorraine's office, a cozy space filled with books and photographs of the children who had passed through over the years. The environment, usually a refuge of peace and hope, seemed to weigh on Denise with Brittany's absence. Lorraine, noticing the shadow of sadness in Denise's eyes, invited her to sit, offering a maternal look of understanding. "Denise, dear, how are you feeling today?" Lorraine began, her voice gentle, trying to penetrate the walls Denise had built around herself. Denise hesitated, an internal struggle evident in her gaze. "I am happy for Brittany," she began, her voice trembling, betraying the fortitude she tried to maintain. "But it hurts more than I thought it would. She was my little sister here, Lorraine. How do you keep going knowing that part of your heart might now live somewhere else?" The words flowed in a rush, revealing the strong pain Denise was trying to hide. Lorraine stood up, rounding the desk to sit beside Denise, offering a hug that was promptly accepted. "My dear, love is a powerful force. It can uplift us and devastate us in equal measure. But remember, Denise, love doesn't diminish with distance. The bond you and Brittany share transcends the walls of this orphanage, the circumstances of adoption. She will always be a part of you, just as you will always be a part of her." Denise, with tears in her eyes, looked at Lorraine, finding a well of strength in the woman who had become almost like a mother to her after so many years together. "But what if she forgets me, Lorraine? What if she finds all the happiness she deserves, and I become just a distant memory?" Lorraine took Denise's hands in hers, a gesture full of warmth and reassurance. "Denise, you are one of the strongest and most loving souls I have ever known. Brittany could never forget you, just as you would never forget her. Brittany's happiness does not erase the light you have inside you, and who knows, the future might bring surprises. Maybe there is a bigger plan for you, one we cannot see yet." The conversation continued, with Lorraine sharing stories of children who found their way back to each other in miraculous ways. Denise listened, allowing herself to absorb the hope Lorraine offered. As she left the office, although the void left by Brittany still hurt, Denise felt a little lighter, carrying with her the promise that true love, no matter the circumstances, finds a way to survive and flourish. Meanwhile, Lorraine, sitting in her spacious yet cozy office, surrounded by photos of children who had passed through the orphanage, received a call that could change everything. The phone rang, a soft melody breaking the silence of the room. "Lorraine Perry speaking," she answered, her voice always calm and welcoming. On the other end of the line, Philip spoke with a tone of moderated urgency. "Lorraine, it's Philip. I'm calling to proceed with Brittany's adoption process. I'd like to start the paperwork as soon as possible, as I know this part takes some time and attention." Lorraine, surprised but understanding, replied over the phone, "Philip, this is excellent news. I'll contact Judge Alfred today. Your decision is truly generous, and I'm sure Brittany is very happy with it." "Thank you, Lorraine. Brittany deserves a home, a family, and I want to provide that for her. We are getting along very well, and I know we will be a beautiful family together," Philip explained, his voice revealing a layer of emotion he rarely allowed to show. "I understand, Philip. I will do everything in my power to help," "Brittany is a special girl, and I'm glad she found someone like you," Lorraine said, genuinely touched by Philip's concern. She knew that the wealthy man would not let Brittany lack anything, from toys to a home full of love and care. The call continued, and meanwhile Brittany, who was nearby and overheard the conversation as she quietly entered the room, felt torn between the joy of finally having a home and the pain of not having Denise by her side in this new chapter of her life. Philip noticed her presence and the hesitation in her eyes. "Brittany," he began, turning his full attention to her. "I know this is very, very fast, but I feel it is the right thing to do. I want you to know that we are in this together, and if you don't want it, I can cancel the adoption process completely, and you can return to the orphanage. What do you think?" Brittany, remembering Denise's words to embrace happiness, sighed deeply. "I know, and I want to try," she said, a mixture of resolution and vulnerability in her voice. "Denise always said to embrace happiness when it knocks on the door, so I will try." Philip nodded, understanding the magnitude of the decision for Brittany. "We will do this together," he reiterated, offering her an encouraging smile. Lorraine, hearing this from the other side of the line, felt a pang of pride and sadness. Pride for the new beginning Brittany would have, and sadness for seeing another child leave the nest. She knew, however, that this was the nature of her work, to prepare the children for their new homes, new lives. And so, with the promise of a new beginning, Philip, Lorraine, and Brittany took the first steps towards a future full of hope, although uncertain. Lorraine contacted the judge and asked to start the adoption process, providing all the necessary information. "That's right, Judge Alfred. I hope we can expedite this as soon as possible. See you at the adoption hearing," she said over the phone. The judge had scheduled the hearing for 3 weeks from then. 3 weeks had passed in the blink of an eye, but for Denise each day dragged on with the weight of an eternity. Her moments at the orphanage were now tinged with Brittany's absence, every corner echoing with memories of shared laughter and whispered secrets. It was amidst this melancholy that Lorraine found her expression carrying news Denise already anticipated, but that still made her heart ache. "Denise, I have something important to tell you," Lorraine began, inviting her to sit beside her on the orphanage's garden bench, where the afternoon sun struggled to warm the cool autumn air. "Brittany's adoption hearing has been scheduled. It will be next week." Lorraine's words confirmed what Denise already knew, but hearing them out loud gave reality to her greatest fear, the definitive separation from Brittany. "Can I go with her? To the hearing? I need to say goodbye to her, see her one last time," Denise asked, her voice choked with emotion. Lorraine placed a comforting arm around Denise's shoulders. "Of course, dear. You deserve to say goodbye to Brittany, and she will be happy to have you there," Lorraine replied, her voice soft, conveying not just permission but also understanding and support. Denise looked at Lorraine, her eyes filled with unshed tears. "But how will it be, Lorraine? How are we going to manage without Brittany? She is like a sister to me, and I don't know if I can end this chapter in this way. She is my happiness here in the orphanage," Denise said, the pain of the imminent separation reflected in every word. Lorraine sighed, searching for the right words to comfort Denise. "I know, Denise, I know. Brittany will leave a big void here, but remember, the love you have for each other will not be diminished by distance. You will be in the same city, and there will be opportunities to see each other. Besides, Brittany's happiness in having a family is something we should celebrate, even if it means difficult changes for us." Denise nodded slowly, Lorraine's words bringing some comfort to her troubled heart. "I just want her to be happy, Lorraine. That is the most important thing," Denise said, determined to maintain her connection with Brittany, no matter the circumstances. "That shows the size of your heart, Denise, and I promise we will do our best to keep you two connected. After all, family is not defined only by blood ties, but by the love we share," Lorraine concluded, offering Denise a smile that carried the promise of better days despite the painful goodbyes. Thus, amidst silent promises and plans for future reunions, Denise and Lorraine began to prepare for the hearing that was soon to come. Lorraine was in her office, where she spent most of her time. "I don't know how it will be for Denise. I just know she will suffer a lot, and I need to be by her side to comfort her." The dawn at the mansion was different that day. An atmosphere of expectation hung in the air, mixing with the first rays of sunlight that entered Brittany's room. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, her thoughts racing, revolving around the big step she was about to take. Philip, noticing the restlessness in her eyes, decided it was time for a conversation to prepare her for the day that would change not only Brittany's life, but his own as well. "Brittany," Philip began, his voice firm but warm, "today is a very important day for us. It is the beginning of a new stage, a new life together. How are you feeling?" Brittany looked at him, her eyes reflecting the storm of emotions she felt. I am happy, Mr. Philip," she said slowly, choosing her words carefully. "But I am also nervous. Everything is still so new to me." Philip nodded, perfectly understanding her concerns. "It is natural to feel that way, Brittany. Big changes like this can be scary, but I will be by your side every step of the way. We are in this together, remember?" Brittany smiled, warmed by Philip's words. "Yes, I remember. Thank you, Philip. That means a lot to me." With a slightly lighter heart, Brittany and Philip prepared to head to the courthouse. The drive there was calm, Philip doing his best to distract Brittany and ease some of her nervousness with funny stories about his youth. She, in turn, began to allow herself to feel the joy of the new life that awaited her, increasingly confident that she was making the right decision. When they arrived at the courthouse, Brittany's heart was pounding. However, when she saw Lorraine and Denise already waiting, a wave of calm washed over her. Entering the courthouse hand in hand with Philip, the presence of Denise, her dear friend, there to support her, strengthened her spirit. Brittany ran to Denise, enveloping her in a tight hug. "I didn't know you would come," she exclaimed, her voice choked with emotion. "I wouldn't miss it for anything," replied Denise, holding Brittany tightly. "I want to be here for you, to support you, today and always." The hug between them was a powerful moment, filled with love and unconditional support. Philip and Lorraine watched closely, both moved by the scene. This was just the beginning of a new chapter in Brittany's life, a chapter full of promises and hope, and she was not alone. She had a new family by her side, and a friend who would always be there no matter what happened. This feeling of belonging and unconditional love gave Brittany the strength to face whatever came next, knowing that regardless of everything, she was where she should be. In the wide and imposing courtroom, the air was thick with expectation. Brittany, sitting next to Philip, held his hand tightly, seeking in him a beacon of safety amidst the storm of emotions within her. Around her, the presence of Lorraine and Denise offered silent comfort, but it was within herself that Brittany fought her greatest battle. Judge Alfred, with his firm and welcoming voice, began the session, but his words seemed distant, muffled by Brittany's internal turmoil. As the judge spoke, praising Philip's willingness to open his home and heart to Brittany, she found herself engulfed in a sea of doubts. "Am I doing the right thing?" The question echoed in her mind repeatedly, like an agonizing mantra. Looking at Philip, she recognized the love and promise of a future he offered, but a part of her still clung to the life she knew, the orphanage, Lorraine, and especially Denise. The ceremony continued, and each word from Judge Alfred seemed to push Brittany closer to a decision that would alter the course of her life forever. But deep down, an unease grew, fueled by the fear of losing her identity, her history, and those who formed the fabric of her existence until then. Then, in an impulse, Brittany felt her heart tighten, anxiety turning into panic. "Please stop," she exclaimed, her trembling voice cutting through the respectful silence of the courtroom. All eyes turned to her, surprised and concerned. I can't do this," she continued, tears starting to flow freely, each drop carrying the weight of her despair. "Please, don't make me go. I don't want to be adopted," Brittany pleaded, sobbing, her small body shaking with the intensity of her emotions. The room was in shock, the air dense with the sudden turn of events. Philip, overwhelmed with worry, tried to reach Brittany, but she recoiled, visibly scared and confused, sinking into her chair as if she wanted to disappear. Lorraine and Denise exchanged worried glances, unsure of how to intervene or calm the emotional storm Brittany was facing. Judge Alfred, maintaining his composure, called for calm, signaling for everyone to give Brittany a moment. But for her, in that moment of total vulnerability, it felt like she had unleashed an avalanche from which she could not escape, her hopes and dreams dissolving into a sea of uncertainties and fear. Amid the tense silence that followed Brittany's desperate plea, Judge Alfred, with his experience in handling delicate situations, took the lead, seeking to understand the root of the sudden emotional turmoil that had halted the adoption process. "Brittany, "I understand that this can be overwhelming for you," he began, his voice calm and steady, an attempt to bring some comfort to the clearly distressed girl. "But it is important that you tell us why you feel you can't be adopted. What is causing so much fear in your heart?" Brittany, sobbing, struggled to find the words to express the turmoil inside her. The room, full of adults awaiting an answer, seemed to spin around her. Finally, with a trembling voice, she managed to articulate what had brought her to that breaking point. "I can't be adopted because I don't want to leave Denise," she said, finally revealing the source of her hesitation. "She is my sister, not by blood, but by heart. I dreamed that one day we would be adopted together. How can I be happy in a new family knowing that I left part of my heart behind?" Brittany's words resonated through the room, leaving a visible impact on everyone present. Lorraine, who knew well the deep connection between the two girls, felt tears welling up in her eyes, while Philip, despite his surprise, began to understand the depth of the bond that Brittany and Denise shared. Faced with Brittany's sincere confession, Judge Alfred announced a break in the hearing, allowing everyone to process the revelation and consider the next steps. "Let's take a break," he decided. "We need a moment to reflect on what has been said." Brittany ran to Denise, hugging her with a force that seemed unwilling to ever let her go. Denise, equally emotional, returned the embrace, whispering words of comfort. "No matter what happens, we will always be together," she promised, the two sharing a moment of unity that transcended words. While the two girls consoled each other, Philip discreetly stepped away, seeking Judge Alfred for a private conversation. The content of their discussion remained a mystery to the others, but the seriousness on their faces indicated the importance of the dialogue. Philip, whose perception of the situation had drastically changed, spoke words they couldn't hear, only imagine. After a few moments that seemed to stretch indefinitely, the hearing was ready to resume. The atmosphere in the room had changed, now permeated by a new understanding of the emotional complexities at play. Brittany and Denise returned to their seats holding hands, a source of strength for each other. Philip, in turn, sat back down next to Brittany, his gaze conveying a silent promise that, regardless of the outcome, he would be by her side. The room awaited in anticipation for what would come next, each heart beating in unison with the hope that somehow a resolution embracing the wishes and needs of all involved could be found. And so, with bated breath and open hearts, they awaited Judge Alfred's return to continue the hearing that would decide Brittany's fate, and indirectly Denise's as well. After the break, which seemed to stretch on forever, the courtroom was impregnated with even more tension for what was to come. Everyone present, still processing the earlier emotional upheaval, fixed their eyes on the door through which Judge Alfred and Philip would return. Brittany and Denise, sitting side by side, held each other's hands, seeking comfort in each other's presence, while Lorraine watched with an expression of cautious hope. When Philip entered the room, a new light animated his gaze, a firm decision etched on his face. Beside him, Judge Alfred resumed his place with serene gravity, preparing to reveal the outcome of the private conversation that could change the fate of everyone in the room. "We will now resume the hearing," announced Judge Alfred, signaling for the room to quiet down. "During the break, we had a very important and revealing discussion. A decision has been made, one that I believe honors the feelings and concerns expressed here today." All eyes turned to Philip, who stood up to speak. His voice, though calm, carried the weight of sincerity and determination. "When I began this adoption process," he started, "my goal was to offer a home, love, and security to a child in need. Today, I realized that my heart and home are big enough not for one but for two." A pause allowed his words to echo through the room. "Brittany showed me today the true meaning of family and love, and that is why I have decided, if they accept, to adopt both Brittany and Denise. I want both of them to be part of my family." A murmur of surprise and emotion swept through the room while Lorraine brought her hands to her heart, visibly moved by Philip's generosity and understanding. Denise, incredulous, turned to Brittany, her eyes seeking confirmation of the reality of the words she had just heard. Brittany, for her part, was incredulous, her emotions a storm of joy, surprise, and a slight hint of disbelief. Looking at Philip, she saw not only the promise of a safe and loving future, but also a deep understanding of what she and Denise meant to each other. "Would you really do that for us? Adopt us both and make us truly sisters?" Brittany asked, her voice filled with emotion. The decision would officially make them sisters, and Philip's response was about to announce the best news of their lives. "With all my heart," Philip replied, looking affectionately at the two girls. "If you allow me, I would like to be a family for you and you for me. I always dreamed of adopting a daughter, and now I can have two. This is a dream coming true twice." Judge Alfred observed the scene with a gentle smile, recognizing the moment as one of those rare instances of pure humanity and kindness. "Well, it seems we have a very special agreement here. Brittany, Denise, what do you say? Now it only depends on your response to proceed." Denise, finding strength in Brittany's gaze, nodded affirmatively, a tear of happiness running down her face as she agreed to Philip's idea. "Yes," she said, her voice firm despite the emotion. "We accept the offer, and we will be very happy to share this new life together." Brittany, feeling the weight of her world change for the better, could only nod, her smile through tears speaking more than words could express. And so, in a courtroom where so many stories end, a new family began to grow, not just by blood ties, but by the unbreakable bond of love and choice. "It is decided. I will expedite the paperwork. Very well, girls, now you are officially Mr. Philip's daughters. Congratulations to the family. I wish you all the best and declare this hearing closed," concluded Judge Alfred, and everyone applauded in celebration. Lorraine, smiling broadly, sat comfortably in Philip's house a month after the adoption. "How have you been?" she asked, looking at Brittany and Denise, who were beaming with happiness. Philip, with a proud smile, replied, "We've never been better. It's as if our family was always meant to be this way." Brittany, holding Denise's hand, added, "Every day is an adventure. We are learning and growing together." Denise, with a grateful look at Philip and Lorraine, said, "I feel so blessed. This home, these people, it's more than I ever dreamed." And so, surrounded by laughter and shared stories, the new family celebrated the beauty of their newly formed bonds. Philip, looking at everyone with a full heart, knew that the journey to that point had been worth every moment of uncertainty, for it had led to something truly special. A home full of love, learning, and laughter, where each member was essential to the fabric of their shared happiness. What did you think of this story? We invite you to leave a like on the video, as this is what keeps us posting exciting stories almost every day. We want to continue inspiring you with stories of overcoming challenges, so don't forget to watch the video appearing on your screen now. See you there.